There are three main differences between being an overachiever and a high achiever. These three things mean the difference between living an amazing life full of meaning and fulfillment and purpose, or a miserable life full of burnout and regret and low self-worth. The first difference is timeline. High achievers think long-term. They think about the next 10, 20, 30 years of their life's work, even beyond their life, into the kind of legacy they want to leave behind. And because of that, they work sustainably. They weave in rest with bursts of work, and they know their limits so that they know that when they push beyond them, they can't do that sustainably. So high achievers tend to have a much longer view in terms of when they expect to see results and also how long they expect to be doing the work they're doing. Overachievers, on the other hand, tend to look more short-term. They're focused on the next deadline, the next week, the next project, the next milestone. And they tend to pour all of their energy and resources into just that next step. So they go beyond their limits because they believe that if they could just get to that point, they can rest, they can coast. So overachievers are always pushing beyond their limits to get to a place where they believe they'll be able to let their foot off the gas pedal. But high achievers know that there is no time like that there is no time where you can just coast. So overachievers tend to get burned out really easily because they don't know their limits, and they tend to use a lot of slash and burn tactics to just getting it done, getting the thing done, staying up all night, drinking 6 cups of coffee, taking caffeine pills, whatever it takes to hit that deadline. The second major difference is their fuel source. So high achievers, their fuel source, the thing that gets them up in the morning, gets energy flowing into their blood and gets them to do the thing each day towards their goals, is clarity on their values and their mission and their purpose in the world. Their fuel is an intrinsic sense that they're meant to be doing what they're doing, and that there's joy in the doing of it, in the process of it. That even if they're not getting paid, they would be doing some form of what they're already doing. So the work they choose generally comes from a place of knowing themselves and knowing that the work they're doing is something they're passionate about and that energizes them, which also helps the work be sustainable for them. Because if you're not getting energy from your work, you're just giving, you're going to be depleted at some point. Overachievers, on the other hand, their fuel source is usually some kind of fear or anxiety. The fear of disappointing others is probably the top fear that drives overachievers to do what they do. So the kind of work they choose generally is work that they feel they should do, whether that's dictated by their family or their other colleagues or authority figures, or it's based on their guilty conscience somehow, like they should be in the helping profession, or they should be doing something that's kind of self-sacrificing. Overachievers tend to look to their work to make them good, whereas high achievers do what they love and bring their goodness to the work. The third major difference is how they measure themselves. High achievers measure themselves by judging how often they were being their best selves. So in other words, they measure themselves compared to their best self. Their best self is a version of them that lives each moment honoring their highest values and being in complete integrity with those values and with their purpose. An overachiever tends to measure themselves based on external measures like numbers, their salary, their scores on a test, their years of experience, and also institutional, rewards or institutional measurements, like the degrees they have and all of that, the title. And they also tend to compare themselves with their peers based on those external measurements. And the thing with overachievers is that when their numbers or measurements come out lower than their peers, it really affects their sense of worth or their self-esteem. Whereas high achievers, their only competition, so to speak, is themselves. And they don't tend to compare with other people to determine how they should feel about themselves. Now, don't get me wrong, high achievers do look at numbers and they do care about that, but they look at them in terms of the system that they're being a part of and that they're trying to build, and the numbers give them objective measurements as to how well that system's working. They don't take that number and apply it to how they feel about themselves or whether they should feel good or bad about themselves. So the three major differences between being an overachiever and a high achiever is timeline. Overachievers look very short term, high achievers look much longer term. The second is their fuel source. So overachievers tend to draw their energy to doing work from like a place of fear or insecurity and needing to kind of make up for that or guard against seeming incompetent. Like if they have imposter syndrome or something, they're going to be like really energized about like getting the work done, being perfectionistic about it. Whereas high achievers, their fuel source is more of this intrinsic drive to just do what they're passionate about, and the reward is in the process itself. And then thirdly, the way they measure themselves. Overachievers tend to measure themselves on external and numeric bases, whereas high achievers measure themselves based on how fully they were able to be their full selves. So I hope that was helpful to differentiate these two types. And if you find that the description about being an overachiever sort of describes you, that, my name is Eddie and I work with overachievers who are starting to feel burned out by what they're doing. And I help them to slowly make that transition into being high achievers, which is being able to have clarity about their purpose and meaning and values so that they can discover that intrinsic joy that they feel in whatever the activity is that really brings them to life. And I help people through that journey, and it's also the journey I've been on for the past 10 years or so, just discovering myself and finding work that I feel really passionate about. And so if that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a call with you, or reach out to me over the comments. I love hearing from you. And also, if you found this video helpful, you might find my other videos helpful, so you can subscribe or just check out my channel. And wherever you are in your journey, just know that return to knowledge about oneself. Continually just return to getting to know yourself and who you are and what you're really meant to do in this life. Thanks so much for watching, and be well.